Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Today, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure how this episode is going to fly because when my friend Lucy Bloomfield asked me about coming on the podcast, I was like, sure, you know so much stuff. You've been in the industry for so long. I don't even know what we're going to talk about, but you come on and let's just have a great conversation. And so before I do a podcast, I actually do pre-podcast chat. And on that, we have a bit of a talk. We decide where the conversation's going to go. I don't script it, but we just have an idea because some people don't like to be caught unawares of where the conversation is going to go. And so when Lucy told me she was going to talk about cycle syncing, and can I just say, if you have a list like I do, which means that you have to think very, very hard when you say the letter S so it doesn't sound like F, the words cycle syncing are very, very difficult to say. Anyway, she told me she was going to talk about this stuff. I thought she was going to talk about creating marketing that cycles with the ebbs and flows of the economy. But that is not what she is here to talk about. I'm not even going to try and explain it. Lucy, what the heck is cycle syncing and why do we need to know about it?
Okay, cycle syncing, I feel, is having a resurgence at the moment. I'm absolutely so excited that so many corporates and business owners are talking about this. But if you've never heard the term, it's essentially about tapping into rhythms and occurrences that are cyclical. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. So there's the business aspect, which I know Selena has talked about in her content because I'm a long time fan of the podcast and everything that she teaches.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. You can tap into your business's 12-month cycle and, get more gains in Q4 versus Q1, for example, if that's how your business works. So that's level one, but there's actually other levels. So the other levels are the cycle syncing of the customer's hormonal cycle. So putting offers in front of them when they're more inclined to spend, and then the extra.
See, if you are watching the video, I am shaking my head because I'm just like, I do not understand this. So you and I, listening, are going on a journey together because I'll be honest with you, Lucy hasn't explained in detail what this is. So you are learning it as quickly as I am. I'm going to come back to how the heck can we know when our customers' cycles and let's just back up. What are you talking about when you talk about hormonal cycles?
Okay, brilliant. Base question. So men and women have different hormonal cycles. So our energy refreshes in different ways. Men, I'm so jealous. You have a 24-hour hormonal cycle that's synced to the sun. So every day the sun comes up and your testosterone is triggered and replenished anew. Our hormonal cycle as women is not like that at all. We're synced to the moon. We have a 28-day hormonal cycle. We are on an emotional hormonal roller coaster every 28 days. So that's where it's coming from.
Okay. So for those of you who are listening, are you trying to say that we can sync what we do in our business and even specifically our marketing and our sales and our revenue to when we get our period? Is that the down low?
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to sync it to your period. You'd want to sync it to something else.
Okay, let's continue there. Okay, before we even go there, how did you discover this?
Necessity. So I had built businesses that essentially were run and built like they were being run and built like by man. So I would do sales calls every day for 9 hours a day. I had a skincare business that I took from 0 to 10,000 customers in 18 months. And that was a 7-day-a-week grind all through my 20s. So when I got to my 30s, I was like, you know what? I think I actually need a little bit of a different approach. And I started learning about the differences between men and women. And basically started uncovering this information about how we're biologically actually very different.
I don't think that part comes as a surprise to us. The part that's surprising me, and if you're listening and you're a man, should you continue to listen to this? I mean, we're not getting into gory stuff here. We're not going down the women's troubles. We are talking about sales and marketing and business growth in general. But if men are listening right now, should they just skip to the next episode?
I don't think so because there's a lot that you can do. If you have a predominantly female customer base, there's a lot you can do with marketing and advertising to get way more returns on your marketing without spending more. And then also, if you have internal or external teams that are women, this is going to be really interesting and valuable.
Okay, so if you're listening, men, keep listening. Women, keep listening. What about if you're women who kind of about my age or maybe a little bit older, who maybe aren't still in the menstruation phase? We've hit the menopause or the perimenopause and everything is all a little bit crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're still synced to the moon. The height of the highs and the low of the lows is just less because the amount of hormones that you produce is less.
All right. Just break this. I'm going to hand over to you and I'm just going to ask the questions that everybody else is thinking. So you just take center stage right now. Tell us all about it.
Okay. So whether you have women in your team or women as customers, there's a couple of things that you need to know about the female hormonal cycle. So there's basically 50% of the month where we feel great. We are on fire. We are pumped full of the hormones that make us women and feminine and glowing. It changes our shape, it changes our body. We're more inclined to spend. We're more inclined to impulse spend because we feel really good. And then there's 50% of the month where it's extremely difficult to get off the couch because of the change in the hormone profile that we have. And don't get me wrong, like women will still spend during that time, but we behave very differently. So when I started getting into this stuff, the very first step that I did was I didn't go out into the marketing with this information. I was just thinking, how can I make life easier for my team in my agency? And so we were all women. We were doing marketing campaigns, launches for our clients every single month. And I basically just started saying, what would happen if we did intense marketing 2 weeks of the month and then very light, very minimal marketing workloads in the other 2 weeks? And what happened is the marketing was actually a lot better because we weren't always grinding. And then I took it one step further. Can I talk about that?
Go for it. This is your stuff. I feel like it's your podcast at the moment, and I'm just listening in, asking the questions because I am very, very skeptical. So I'm going to come in with all the bad cop questions.
Please. So then I took it one step further because I knew it was working for our internal team. They were able to produce better quality marketing campaigns. The creative was better. The costs, like the workload costs, were less than when we worked all month. And then the client's results started getting better. So for me, that was a win-win from the internal side of things. Then
I'm going to jump in. Well, I've got a question. But what if they're not all on the same cycle? Is it your cycle that we're syncing or is it everybody? Like, how do we choose when we're going to work and when we're going to not work as much?
So women, it's a really bizarre natural phenomenon that happens, but when women spend time together, their cycles sync to each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So men who are listening, this is why half the month you're in the good books and half the month you're not in the good books.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right. Well, look, guys, if you're listening, this is maybe one thing that if you take nothing else from this podcast, perhaps you've learned something here. It's not always your fault.
No.
2 weeks a month.
And well, that's right. The other 2 weeks, 100%. No, I'm kidding. The other thing I think is really important to remember is that our hormonal cycle is dictated by the moon. We are completely synced to that moon. And so the moon has the power to move the ocean. The moon impacts insects, breeding cycles all across the board. And when you Google this, moon's impact on insects, breeding cycles, it's all there. If you Google moon's impact on humans, essentially like all of the literature or the articles about this says, no, it has no impact on us whatsoever, which is absolutely a lie. Because what we found over time, and we started testing this over a number of years, over a number of clients, 15 clients, and all of the large consulting companies, the companies that I work with now as a consulting service, is that actually the hormonal cycle of women is mostly synced to a specific phase of the moon.
Tell me more.
Yeah. So
it's like what you're saying is most of us are on the same cycle worldwide, but I can't imagine that would be the case.
It is the case. Obviously, we have a couple of variables that are influencing that cycle. So, birth control is 100% changing women's cycles. And then you have health issues like endo and things like that that make you irregular. So, I'm just assuming, like, based on everything that I've read, all the studies that we've done, that the women that we are talking about don't have those two factors. If they did, it's very different. But the period or the lull or the drop in hormonal cycles is typically around the full moon.
Okay, so how do we use this information? So is the drop the lull when we do the work, or is the lull is when we don't do the work?
The lull is entertainment, inspiration, and just like a gentle easing off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
when can we work, lady? Like, when are we actually going to do the things that make us money?
The 2 weeks surrounding the new moon are proven, documented across multiple financial industries, Wall Street, to produce twice as much cash as if you do it around the full moon. So there's a book that's passed around, and there's a ton of studies on this. If you Google full moon shares, value of shares, moon cycling shares, when to sell shares, it is well documented over longer periods of time that if you hold your shares over the full moon, if you sold your shares over the new moon, you will make less money than if you sold it over the new moon. So when I read this, and this is when I really started going really deep into the rabbit hole.
Did you like go down to this? Did you go and watch like the stock market? This is what I would do. If you told me that, I would be like, all right, give me the Dow Jones. I'm not a stock market person. I'm just making these words up from TV. Give me the S&P 500, and I want to track this.
Yes. Well, this is the base. Yes, this is the basis of the software that I'm building. So we did that. And then also what I started doing is I started tracking the client's Shopify sales data to see if they made more money for less cost on those 2 weeks. And they were. Now, the businesses weren't optimized for this lens to look through it. So like, it wasn't like a clearly distinct, oh my God, it's a revolution, but pattern inside of those sales stats. But there was enough information in there in the tracker that I built, very ghetto, to see that the sales that they made on that 2 weeks cost them less than the other 2 weeks. So I decided what would happen if I applied this pressure on this 2 weeks with a launch, with a marketing campaign, with an offer that has a deadline and has urgency, and they have to act to take advantage. And we were able to minimum 2x the return on that campaign or offer or product launch without touching ad spend. I've had clients triple and quadruple, but we don't guarantee it. The double is the absolute minimum.
So what you're saying is if I just choose when I'm going to do a promotion, everything else equal, that I will make more money around if I launch this during the new moon than I will in the full moon. I'm assuming this means our customers are women.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just take a step back?
Mm-hmm.
In my head, I am doing somewhat air math, and everyone who's listening knows that Sal is terrible with air math. So please jump in and correct me if I am wrong.
Mm-hmm.
How do we work this so that when we're doing the work, we're ready for that period? It seems like a lot of planning is needed. And I'm going to be honest, I like to plan. I'm generally only a few months out, if I'm lucky. I'm guessing the people who are listening, if we can get them, if their marketing is mapped out 2 months in advance, they are like gold star high-fiving. They may have an idea, just like I do. I've kind of got it mapped out, but I'm not down to this kind of level of everything being ready. So how do you, is that what you're saying? Basically, you got to be super organized.
It takes time, but yes, we wouldn't produce products. Like if you think about your factory, right? They have a process for producing products. And let's just say it's a 10-step process to produce your hero product. And we don't break that process. We continue to repeat that process over and over and over again until it costs us less to make the product. We get more product out for the same time in, and we get a better quality product and things like this.
Okay, wait, stop. I'm out. Question time. I would love to think that I had that much control over telling my suppliers and my manufacturers when they can start manufacturing. Generally, again, you give them an idea of when you want the stock, they work backwards, they fit you into a schedule. Are you trying to tell me that you are able to get your when are they manufacturing? Are they manufacturing in the new moon?
Oh, we don't manage that. Sorry if that wasn't clear. I'm mostly
Okay.
talking about companies that like produce their own products. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm like,
Ow.
you are a miracle worker if you're telling the guy over in some other country that you want him to start manufacturing your product on a specific day. I would love to have that relationship. I've never had that close a relationship with my suppliers.
Totally. Same.
Okay. All right. So what you're saying, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that if we are organized, we can put our marketing and our promotions and our ads together, maybe a month out, maybe a couple of months out. But then when we're going to launch them, we don't launch until we're near the new moon. So now I have a question because I'm working this back in my head. So it's kind of air math in days. And we know that that doesn't always work. If we're going to do a promotion, I don't know about you, but we would generally do it over kind of a 2-week period, depending on how big it was. So you would do a bit of the teaser, send the emails out, some social media posts, maybe run some ads, assuming we're doing a very big launch, not just a generic promotion. Are we doing, the new moon is like, how many days?
So the new moon is the phase of the moon is one day, like it happens on one day. But the 2 weeks surrounding that one day is the most opportune time.
Okay, is that like a week before and a week after? Okay, so are you saying that we start the product launch at the beginning of the phase of the new moon and then it ends, or do we try and get it in the peak? Tell me more.
I like a hype coming into it, and then the day of, I usually launch.
Okay, so the day of the new moon. Okay, the people who are listening here, assuming they take your advice, they may or may not, but assuming they take your advice, now we have this mass competition of super smart people who are all trying to launch at the same time. If more people got wind of this, I can't see in my brain, I'm waiting for you to jump in and prove me wrong, how we can have more sales for less money if there's more competition at the same time.
I don't think that's a concern, but I can see why you would. The typically like the studies on this on how women spend is that we bank up a bunch of money and then we spend a chunk of it. So like there sure there's probably merit in what you're saying. Absolutely. This is a very new idea. This is like a whole podcast I've been on.
We didn't talk about this beforehand. So
yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot.
You absolutely are. This is an early stage idea. I've been testing it on the back end, so pretty much no one knows about it. So I think you've got probably about like a couple of years before it becomes mainstream. But also the way that women spend, we typically spend in blocks, and there's more than enough to go around.
I love that. I love that you said that. Okay, now I have another question, which is, say I am a store that resells other people's products and brand X is having a promotion and I can't change that. They have told me promotion is between the 1st and the 5th or whatever the dates are. Can I utilize any of this that you're sharing with us? Because I'm still highly skeptical. I am open to listening. I will check the data, but my job is to give you guys who are listening the edge. And if this is your edge, it's cost you nothing. There's nothing, you're not saying there's nothing here that you're trying to sell at this point. You're still building something. But right now, it doesn't hurt anybody to go, you know what, I might just change the date on that one. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. If you've got fixed dates, I mean, that's really hard. I've had people that are selling other people's products and unless you can sell them on the concept, you've basically just got to go with what's said to you. And I'm not saying you can't make money, but I'm just saying you'll make more money if you do it like this.
Okay. All right. So let's just backtrack. Say we've bought into this idea or we're skeptical enough to give it a try and see if it works. I'm always down for that. So what are we doing and when? And I'm asking you to break it down, like when are we writing copy or when are we doing the creatives or when are we even filming anything? I can see that this has merit. I haven't fact checked it, but I can see that it has merit. And so I'm asking the questions. If I walk away and go, you know what, she is right. And I go back to my ads agency and say, guys, you need to up my budget. Oh, okay, there we go. I have a side question. I'm going to ask you to break it down to what we're doing and when. But then I have a side question, which is, do I do more advertising for my product knowing that there is a time between viewing and buying. So we know that it's like 27 touch points now before I actually go and buy something. What if that's more than a week?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I just asked you a whole bunch of questions. You answer them as you will.
Where do I start? So,
okay, break it down. What are we doing and when?
Okay, so the main thing that I would say is if you're listening to this and you're willing to play, is to not, it's actually, as Selena said, there's a lot of planning and organization that goes into this. And it takes time to put that kind of infrastructure into place. So I wouldn't even be thinking about doing this monthly. I would save it up for something major. So maybe you're like, okay, interesting idea. We'll do this at June, end of financial year. And we'll just start doing little chips on it now to get it into place. That's kind of how I think about it. Once you've done one launch, the labor involved in doing other launches or implementing this on a month-to-month basis is a lot less because you have the social media posts written, you have the templates, you have everything that you need to replicate, duplicate in different ways and forms. And then that's where you get the gains month to month. But like, please don't feel like you need to do this month to month because it is a lot of work. That's the first thing. I generally take 12 weeks when I'm working with a client, 12 weeks from start to finish. And that is the planning, the marketing making, the launch and the performance management of the launch, and then the infrastructure and the cleanup afterwards so that everything's stored and it's kind of like a swipe file that I can pull out and run that launch again in the same manner. So I would say, yeah, please.
How long, for all of you who put one post on social media or send 2 emails, how long do you take to plan a big promotion?
12 weeks.
12 weeks. 12 weeks, my friend. This is not air math. It's 3 months.
Yes.
3 months. And you're talking about, this is not your everyday, oh, I'm doing an upsell. This is like the thing that makes you the most money.
Absolutely.
Something that you may be doing once or twice a year.
100%. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. In alignment with your business's cycle. So when your cash is thinnest and most viscous and fastest flowing and costs you the least, that's when you put this amount of effort into it. We've had clients triple their sales without ad spends.
Oh, and coming back to when do we advertise? Do not let me forget that. But now I have another question.
Yeah.
Which is, generally, we will run these big promotions. I'm not saying everyone, but generally we run these big promotions when we know that we're going to be in either the peak of the peak or the bottom of the low. So that's our cash flow boost. Either way, it's our cash flow boost. What were you just saying? But if we're doing this if we're looking at the one that we're doing when it's usually our quietest period of time and we're using it as our cash flow boost, we don't have as much money then. But you're saying do it when you have the money. Walk me through that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a really big believer in chasing your business's cash cycle. And so for me, I always like to hook marketing on almost like a conduit or a pipe to when the cash is thinnest and easiest to make. So it's like, instead of like sludge, which is those real slump seasons, it like is just a siphon up into the business with cash. So for me, I would rather exert this level of effort and double, triple, quadruple that peak season and then protect and preserve the cash to ride through the low season. Because for me, like it just makes more sense energetically. But I know a lot of businesses need to make more money. So let me just be really clear. If you did implement this like as a monthly launch strategy, which a lot of small businesses do because they want the cash flow, I would say drop any expectation of doubles and triples, but you'll definitely get more return implementing this stuff.
Okay. But if we are, just let me see if I've understood you correctly.
Please.
If we're doing, say, 2 big promotions, one in our peak season, let's just go with Christmas and June. June is our low season. Christmas is our peak season. If we're doing one in June and it's going to take us 12 weeks.
Starting April. Mm-hmm.
April, yeah, I'm just doing that on my fingers. Just thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we, I guess, like how do we keep the momentum? And let me just explain where I'm going.
Mm.
Assuming you're the typical business who it's up to 70% of their money comes through in Q4. So you write out Q4, you're super busy. January is usually also busy. February, you're like, oh, then Easter comes. I know you're saying cycle, sync this with your cycle, but there's really not an awful lot of time. So how do we do it?
Where is there not a lot of time?
Well, you've kind of just been doing all the things in the peak and you get to February and it's a Valentine's Day and you kind of breathe in March and then you got to get, like, when are we finding the time to build the 12 weeks of promotions?
Yeah. So, I mean, this was a really mindset, like a big mindset shift for me, because I had an agency at the time where I was doing monthly marketing campaigns, and I thought I needed to apply pressure and do these big launches and like bring in cash every month. But as I got more savvy and more interested on return on energy, and also studying how businesses' cash cycles work, I realized that if I just exerted the bulk of my energy on that last quarter, which, as you said, 70%, the rest of the year, like I'm keeping things going, but I'm not stressed about that. What I'm thinking about in those low seasons is I'm starting to chip on these bigger seasons. I'm just like steadily chipping at Christmas year round. It's like a little tap on it every single week to just get it ready. And then the rest of the year, I'm really thinking about just marketing to keep the wheels turning, and also what key relationships do I need, whether that's influencers or press or, you know, a corporate partnership with like a collaboration product or something like this, so that when it's time to make money, I'm not pulling from just the assets that I have. You have the right partnership, you have the right press relationship, you have the right influencer relationship nurtured over a, let's say, 9-month period. You call that out as a favor in Q4, and that can literally change your life forever in your business.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I think about it. Does that answer your question?
Kind of, sort of. I think it's enough.
Mark.
Let me come back to the money.
Okay.
I spend a lot of money on ads.
Okay.
I feel like if I said to my ads guy, he's a guy, you need to spend more money at this time of the month than at this time of the month. He would look at me like I had 4 heads, and then he would go into detail and tell me why I shouldn't do that because it's going to mess with the meta algorithm.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about this. If you're like, you know what, I'll give you some overarching data on this, great. But if you know about this, I would love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I follow the same principles. I exert more force on that 2 weeks, so more force, more budget. And I usually scale back my ad spend on the other 2 weeks. So one thing that you can do, and I think I did send you the lunar ROI tracker. So
I think maybe you did. Yeah.
So for anyone listening to this, it's just a spreadsheet. It's so basic. 2024, the entire year, by day, by month. And you just do an export of your Shopify sales daily against your export of your daily ad spend. And the rows that are surrounding the new moon are green. The rows surrounding the full moon are red. And you'll be able to see that there is a pattern in how much your money costs at certain times. The money you make costs at certain times of the month. So you can play with that to get more.
I love that, because we track our stuff every single day. And I feel like you probably did send that. I maybe have not taken that next step, but you know I will do it. Are you okay if I share that?
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Guys, I will test it and then I will stick it into this episode. All right. For men who are listening and have women as customers or women in their team, I would love to know how you broach this conversation, because I feel like they're like, this is not really something I feel comfortable talking about. Not everyone, but some people.
Sure. It's definitely not priority number one. I typically, when I'm talking to women, I lead with this because you live through it every single month, so you know what I'm talking about. But with men, most of what I talk about is the cost of the money. So yeah, that lunar ROI tracker is really kind of key in all of this, because when you see the numbers, unoptimized, but there is absolutely a pattern there are certain times of the month where your money costs more to make and certain times of the month when it doesn't. They're a lot more open to that than they are, hey, let's track your customer's hormonal cycle and sync the marketing to it.
I feel like most men would just be like,
no
go away, you crazy lady. Stop talking to me about that. All right. I have one final question. I probably have 400 final questions. But my last question is, how do you push through when there is no other option? So, for example, we talked about Q4 being really, really busy for most people. How do you, if you weren't prepared, and guys, we're giving you 10 months, right? Not 10 months, maybe 6 months, you can get prepared. But if you're hearing this, maybe not as it goes live, and you're thinking, you know what, it's worth a crack. I've exported the data into the spreadsheet. I can see that what you say has merit. I'm really going to have to crack on. I can't afford to lose 2 weeks. What do you say to that?
Make more money in the other 2 weeks. I'm just like, that's all I have to say. No, seriously. Look, there are so many people not doing this that it would be crazy to say this is the only way, because there are tons of people that are not doing this. So you don't have to do this. You can continue marketing and shipping. All I'm saying is that the cost of the money that you make during these 2 windows is lower than the other 2 weeks. And if you got interested in exploring that idea and seeing what happens when you apply pressure on those 2 weeks and said, give me more to the customers and from your business, that you would see really significant improvements in performance, even if we're just talking about marketing, not advertising.
Okay. I'm going to do this. I said I would do it. I haven't done it yet, but I will do this. And I'm going to export my daily spend and my daily sales, and I'm going to see. And if I have done that before this goes live, I will add a little bit extra. My calendar is very, very full at the moment. In fact, I'll probably get one of my team to do it. Let's do that. Let's just get somebody else to do it.
Yes.
That's really good. And I will report back before this goes live and tell you, did it light up? I already know from last month that there is a chance, just a chance, that what you're saying is true, because there were 2 weeks of last month where we did a ridiculous amount of sales.
When was it?
And then
when was it? What was
I'm going to say like the second week of January.
Okay. So I'm just typing
in my head.
Sorry, guys.
Put me on the spot.
Yeah, cool. So the second week of, hang on, wait. So the new moon in January was actually the end of the month, but the new moon in December was the 30th. So that makes sense.
Oh, before we go, now I have a question. It's a different moon depending on where you are. So how does that work? Because you just like, I'm just like, well, actually, now that I think about it, the majority of those sales were in America. That's Canada. So Northern Hemisphere. Their moon's going to be different to our moon.
That's right. So this is why I got to a certain point where spreadsheets would only take me so far. And I was like, holy crap, I need to actually build a Shopify app that tracks all of this, because ultimately we're talking about the moon, but what we're actually talking about is the moon's impact on Earth, which is the gravitational force, right? And so, yes, of course, where you're geographically located, you are going to experience like different shifts depending on where you are. So yeah, it's all kind of manual right now, but like you're absolutely right. Yes.
Mean that if we sell globally, we buy all the weeks of the year.
Exactly. You know what? You're not seasonal at all. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I could even, you know what I'm going to even try and do? I'll see if I can do this, is break down sales by the person selling versus the person buying. Yeah. And if they were in the same place, See, this is what data nerds do, right? We look at stupid things like this.
Please send me the spreadsheet because I want to go through it.
Alrighty. I think I'm done with my questions for the moment. Mm-hmm. I'm still skeptical, but you knew that was going to be the case. But I am open, because anything that can make us more money and that can make our customers happy, and that means we do more work, more money and less work in a time when we feel more energetic, especially if it costs us nothing. This is like win, 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 win. That's like a win pancake stack.
Yeah.
So I'm good. I'm good to give this a try. I'm good for the people who are listening to go out and have a look and see if it works. I will get the spreadsheet uploaded into the show notes. You do you and see. And I would love it if you could report back and tell us.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. I'm putting that out there. Send us a DM and let us know what happened with the data. All righty. Lucy, this is always a pleasure. And thank you for pushing me outside of my comfort zone and making me think about something that I did not think I was ever going to be talking about on this podcast.
You are so welcome.
Want to catch up with you? Where can they find you?
Best place is on LinkedIn, Lucy Bloomfield. It says I double seasonal category revenue with cycle synced marketing. So that's the IP that I'm developing. You can also find me on Instagram, Lucy Bloomfield Official, and my website is lucybloomfield.com.au.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.